For those people who have signed up, and we have our attendee count is going up, my name is Mike Lejeune, and I'm excited that we get a chance to come together and spend time talking about something that as leaders is on our minds, is our workforce has shifted from being in a corporate company office setting. And we've told our employees about 75% of the workforce, they say in the United States, has shifted now and has moving from a company office to a home office. And the challenge we're running into as leaders is that we have to maintain productivity in this thing. And I'm going to show you something before I introduce our panelists here real quick, because this is what we're wrestling with. And I've specifically asked our panelists to help us kind of talk about this because of their background experiences in leading different groups. This is called the transition curve. Kubler-Ross put out that talks about that anytime that you deal with a sense of change, there's a shock that takes place, a surprise that comes up. There's an expectation reality, and they say in numbness, immobilization. And then people run into got this change going on. They go into a state of denial. I don't want the change. We don't have to have the change. And then slowly there's a shift that takes place that comes to awareness. And that's leading a person to self-doubt, frustration. It's a reality. Anger and confusion comes in because it bites, because their awareness change is necessary. We have no choice. Change is necessary as it works out. And then hopefully you go through this curve and you get to a place of acceptance, okay, where you let go of the past. Right now, I tell you, I don't know about y'all, but I can still remember what life was like about 8 weeks ago, before we started having this coronavirus thing. I can go back to December and I can look at my calendar for January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and I knew what I had coming out in front of me. And my mind goes sometimes back to what was as opposed to what is. And I got to let that go and get comfortable with attitudes and behaviors. And then you get to a stage where there's an experimentation. You start thinking, what do I do differently? Today is another example of that. Instead of being in your office and speaking to you, I'm speaking to you now through a webinar, through a virtual event using technology, and invited other people to come in and join me with this. And then searching for meaning that has to do with, here's the reasons of why I'm successful, not successful with what I'm doing right now, with what's happening, why, and then integration and putting new skills, new attitudes, and new behaviors that are involved with it. This is a transition curve. And if you look at this describes every industry, and in particular describes the recruiting industry, because of the fact that we were involved in a situation where we're helping people from an employment standpoint, and you're watching companies deal with their organizations and their temporary labor force and their direct hire labor force. And do I hire? Do I not hire? And onboard? Do I not onboard? And there's all this stuff that's taking place. So I'm going to stop sharing this so I can bring our panelists back up here and talk to you. But while I'm doing this, I'm going to launch a poll. What I'd like for you to do is, as I introduce our guests, is where's your team on this curve when you think about it? Where's your team on this curve? And so you should see a window that pops up that shows you the ability to come in and cast your vote as to which one of these are. Now, while I'm doing that, I want to introduce the people who joined us today and tell a little bit why I asked them to come in. Annette Monks, depending on if you have gallery view, which is what I recommend you do if you don't have gallery view, change it from speaker view to gallery view, and you'll have all four of us on the screen at one time. Annette Monks is the president of a company called Carlton Staffing, and also Carltech, which is a technology engineering oriented company. She's been in this business. Can I tell how long you've been in? A long time, Annette.
I don't even know. Yeah, 30 years.
It's a long time now.
Yeah.
And she's what I referred to, because our Steverson, the company I was president of, was kind of similar in size. She has, I think 20 some odd employees in your team. I refer to that as kind of a premium boutique kind of company. It has search as well as contract staffing in that space. And what I love about Annette is she took over as president of Carlton about 11 years ago. And since then, Houston Business Journal has picked it as best places to work. Houston 101 picked the best and brightest company. Dallas did the same thing, and Vero says best of staffing. And it's because she has this cool approach to leadership that has to do with managing and building culture and connecting with people. So I asked her to join us today to talk about connection. So, Annette, thanks for coming and playing with us.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Yeah. So how's your team right now, Annette, adjusting to this? I don't call it the new norm. A lot of people call this. There's nothing normal about what we're dealing with right now.
What's funny you say that because my VP hates that term, and so she calls it the new reality.
Me too.
Which I think is great. And I think this cycle of change, if you're a leader, had to happen in about 24 hours.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we've been working the last 2 years to ensure that we were paperless, although we didn't take advantage of the paperless options. So we were ready to go fully remote. So my team is fully in integration right now. So that's helpful. The late adopters had to adopt.
It was kind of like no longer a vote, right? No, those people had the little notebooks and the spiral binders and all that stuff.
Printed resumes,
Out the window then. Super. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. Second person on my screen, bottom right-hand corner, is Chad Schreiber with the QPS Employment Group. I was honored to work with Chad and his company, I guess what was back, I think in January or something, Chad. I flew to Milwaukee, which is what the company's based out of. Chad, as a matter of fact, you can't see behind his window. Those of you, and most of the people on right now are here in like the Texas area. We have some people that are coming in from further north. But 10 minutes ago, it started snowing right behind Chad's head. Just want you to know that. So if you see these white things floating around, it's not pollen like we have here in Houston. It's literally snow. But Chad is over the direct hire search division for QPS, which is a company has 60 some odd branches in that upper Midwest area. He's been really heavily responsible putting in search systems, processes, and techniques and help grow that particular division. Their marketplace covers heavy manufacturing, very industrial. They do both search. The company also does a lot of what they call GL or with general labor staffing in the contract space. And what I love about Chad's background, one of the reasons I think that he has become so successful in business is he transferred kind of his early upbringing career from both growing up on a farm as well as being from on the national, leading a national champion of volleyball team, college level volleyball team. So this guy is a prolific volleyball player. I'm not going to ask you to spike anything today, Chad, but welcome. So excited to have you.
Thanks. Well, you'll have to take away the player part. I was much better coach than I was a player, which is sometimes the case.
Yeah. But how's your team adjusting?
Well, much like Annette said, we've somewhat transitioned to be prepared for this for the last couple of years already. Many of our recruiters have had the flexibility to work from home, and that wasn't a new thing. The new thing for them was having kids in the background and trying to help them with their schoolwork while they're working at home. That's something that when they've worked at home, that's not been a factor they've had to deal with right now. So working from home, normal. Working from home with distractions, that's a new thing for all of them. So that's probably been the biggest switch. And looking at your graph, granted it was a small snapshot, but it had some pretty high peaks and valleys. And in stealing the COVID theme, I think we flattened that curve in a hurry. That we never reached those peaks or those valleys. That graph flattened for us in a hurry. We went from it's here to what are we experimenting with overnight.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I was talking to the CEO for the Hayes company, which is a search contract firm. It's actually out of Europe, and they came here and bought an operation up about 11 or 12 years ago, and do a lot of work in construction, engineering, technology, that type of thing. And I was asking him the same question, and he said he was really proud of their organization, how fast they shifted and made adjustments, how quickly they tried to get to norm as fast as possible. And it sounds like within your group, y'all, it wasn't an option, had to go in that direction. I think you were telling me you had some operations that on the staffing side saw 80% or 90% of their revenue drop off the board within weeks. And then others flourished because you're in the upper Midwest, you got a lot of food manufacturing stuff taking place.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. The branches that were primarily automotive took a nosedive. The branches that were food actually saw some upticks in needs.
So you've got that in place. And so welcome. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the upper left-hand corner, by the way, he put that up there because he had a bright light behind his head. It kind of made him look like he was an apostle or something like that. It was a glow taking place. So he got the light out of it, but he is not on a beach, even though he does like to dive. Curt Tueffert is somebody that I've known for a number of years, and I asked him to join us today because he's the vice president of sales development for a company called DXP Industrial, which is an industrial supply company that deals a lot in sort of the engineering space. And he's also on faculty, adjunct professor for the University of Houston's sales curriculum, which is recognized as the #1 university sales development program in the country. Curt has had a virtual team, if you will, people working from home offices, I think throughout most of your career with DXP, as opposed
Right.
to in the home office. He has done work within the staffing industry with clients, and so he knows our space as well. But because of his experience in dealing with that remote worker, especially from a leadership standpoint, I just felt there was a lot that he could contribute to our conversation today. So thanks for coming and playing with us.
Sure. Looking forward to sharing whatever knowledge we have as we're all trying to learn together, and each day is a different day as it relates to how do we keep our employees who are remotely, and as Chad said, remote with some extras, the distractions of additional people in the house, or for us, we're finding people who have been forced to work at home who maybe never have done that. They don't have a home office. They have a kitchen table, and they have to share that kitchen table with other people in their house who are also in this predicament. How do we do that? How do we maintain our productivity, and how do we not get disengaged in the process? So that's what DXP has been doing. We launched a project and completed it this week about just providing tools to our managers as well as to our employees who are in this not so new normal, but just this new thing. And how can they connect with their people? And so hopefully the tools that we've given them are practical things we can do, creative in a sense, so that everyone who is in the situation can contribute rather than just kind of sit on the sidelines scratching their heads waiting for this thing to pass.
Yeah, well, from a rapid fire standpoint or whatever, let's talk about technology tools. We'll start with you, Curt, since you brought it up. But what are a couple of technology tools? I'm throwing Zoom on the table. We're using that right now. It's the #1. I wish I'd bought stock in Zoom, but apparently the stock kind of took a nosedive in the last couple of days because they've got their bandwidth is kind of getting crashed. What else have y'all brought on?
From a technology standpoint, in industrial distribution, it's not as advanced as the other colleagues on this call, and many of the people who are attending this webinar might be more advanced. So what had happened is we had an immediate discovery that sending people home so that they would be outside of the COVID-19 threat, they didn't have the tools or technology in order to be productive. So we had to address that. Currently, as of today, we're making some recommendations regarding Skype for Business, which is a platform that DXP is aligned with. There's Zoom, which we can use from a standpoint of our salespeople. And again, DXP has a tremendous amount of salespeople. And the challenge is, how do we not sound irrelevant? How do we not send an email that talks about COVID-19 because our customers are bombarded with those? So we're looking at other things like BombBomb or Loom, Loom, as ways of connecting with customers and employees with a short video snippet and send it out there, so that we use 2 dimensions: the auditory dimension of a conference call / group chat, or a visual dimension, whether it's going to be FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, or Loom, other things that we can do to help get the engagement out there. And of course, with a tool like a Skype or a Zoom, which we're on right now, we have the ability to share our desktops. So when we have a group of people who are working on a project, talking about it is only one dimension. But if we get on a call and share a desktop and have everybody have eyes on what's going on and contribute, it accelerates the production and it keeps our employees engaged.
Yeah, I'm going to come and ask Chad the same question, though. They had to roll out very quickly, technology-wise, but while he's kind of putting his thoughts together, tell us about a Loom snippet that somebody might use, because what we're talking about is basically, I think, you're talking about using your iPhone to shoot something or using a camera on your computer and shooting something real quick, real fast. Give us an example how that might be used.
So and I'm not I'm not a pitch person for this product. It's just one of probably many out there. It's very quick. I could be walking, because that's one of the things we're asking our employees to do when they're working at home, is if they can, outside of a snowstorm in Wisconsin, can just get up and walk around the block and change your physiology. So I grab my phone, Loom is downloaded on my iPhone. I hit the button and I do a quick recording to one of my salespeople. Hey, James, how are you doing? I just want to check in with you. I know it's Thursday before some holidays. Just keep focused, keep connect with your customers. Stop. It automatically goes into either mail or text messaging. I find his name, I hit send. Then when that particular snippet or small 20-second video has been viewed, I get an email that says that it's been viewed. Now that's a great return on investment. And so I'm using it, I'm experimenting with it. It could be just goofy, or it could be a temporary bandage within COVID-19. So once we all get back to pre-COVID, we may stop this. Don't know. It's just a way for us to connect.
It's a way to connect at an emotional level other than just some text or whatever. What about you, Chad? I mean, when we talked earlier, you know, you guys did a lot of things right, which is why I wanted to spend some time with you today. What did y'all use from a technology standpoint to speed the process up?
We were right in the middle of transition to Office 365. So with that came Microsoft Teams. So that became the new norm overnight. People feel connected. Like, my staff sits in small groups all over the state. So a month ago, they would talk to each other every day, but they wouldn't see each other because they wouldn't do a video chat. Now working from home, even though it's through virtual, they're seeing a face more than they've ever seen a face before, because they're doing it through Microsoft Teams, not over the phone line. So wow. In an odd way, they're getting the same level of human interaction, because they're doing the same amount that way, but they're actually seeing a face this time, where they would just use an inter-office line connection in the past. So Microsoft Teams being the new norm is actually having a little more virtual face-to-face we've ever had before.
Yeah. And my understanding is that any of us who have a Microsoft, an Office 365 account, we're paying the annual subscription. We have access to Microsoft Teams, don't we?
That's my understanding as well.
That's right, because I've heard that it's for small groups, small settings, really, really valuable tool.
Yep. The only limitation is you can have 4 people on a screen only. So if the minute you get more than that, even switching to a grid view, you only get 4. I'm sure there is a workaround that I don't know about, or there might be one on the horizon, but as it stands today, we're only able to put 4 people on the screen, even if we have a larger group.
Yeah, well, the reason for it is, from what my research is, the Microsoft Team is designed for smaller. It's a smaller venues. It's a project kind of deal along those lines.
Right.
Anything else that y'all have done technology-wise that's really helped?
I guess I wouldn't call this technology, because it's really the marketing and human resources side of this, but along the lines of hosting webinars, we have a pretty robust marketing department. We have an in-house legal counsel, and we have a large human resources department, especially when you lump them together with our learning and development team. So that group has gone into fast forward, trying to stay ahead of things for our customers. Anything from, is it legal to test a temperature before you walk in the building, to what does this mean between a furlough and a layoff, and all the new unemployment laws and benefit packages out there, offering any kind of insight we can by using our own internal team, as well as next weekend we're hosting an external legal team giving interpretations of things. So we're trying to be a resource for our customers, because the sooner they can make decisions, it's better for them and better for us. So we're using webinars and LinkedIn and any other medium we can, just to communicate information. That you're on information overload right now. So we did it daily for the first 2 weeks, and now we've switched to twice a week, so we're not overloading, but the content's still very strong, and the response we're getting from customers, clients, is very positive at this point.
Yeah, because what's happening is you're making a noise in the marketplace. It's like, if you go and you look at the CNN, Fox spirals, or whatever you got taking place, information comes up, but it's also gets regurgitated all day long, or it's opinions about information. But it's just, I mean, if you go and you do this on your telephone, look for a news feed, 99% of which is COVID driven. And we have an opportunity, I think, a voice in our marketplace to be able to push out more information externally to our clients like you're talking about. But I think it's important for us to be doing the same thing internally with our teams, so we can kind of help push some of that noise aside and have our voice. And you know, Annette, you have a company that has, I mean, you lead with such a heart, and you have such a sense of connection with your employees. What have y'all have to done from a technology? Because technology has a tendency to be kind of cold. But you know, you've got people now running who are working at home offices. What have you done to kind of maintain that culture that's so special for your group?
Well, let me just add to a couple of those technology things, ditto to all of them. If you are having trouble now getting fee agreements signed or proposals, there's a Proposify, which is great and easy and inexpensive for doing proposals and having.
Slow down on that. Say that again, please. I'll make sure everybody gets that.
Proposify.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it because it's easy, it's inexpensive, and it allows you to create your own proposals, send them to a client, and they can e-sign them. So, and then you can download them and attach them in your CRM. So that's helpful. And the rest, I think, have already been, in Office 365, we put a OneDrive in, which allowed us to share documents. So that was very helpful. And that gives us access to the rest that you were talking about. Maintaining the culture. So this, of course, could be a conversation, which I will reduce to just a couple of minutes. But the bottom line is it starts from the top. And so my responsibility is to maintain that, correct? And so a couple of years ago, we created a Credo card because we weren't able to articulate ourselves what culture was. And so the Credo card ended up allowing us to articulate what things were important to us and what drove us to make decisions, and then what it looked like in the real world. And this is this is what it looks like. The Credo card. Everyone in my company has it. We put it together. We call it the 6 C's: culture, caring, curious, communication, candor, and community. Any of those things apply to what we do every single day. And we bring them home with us now, and it still is the same. So if we have to make decisions, if we have to, any behavior that we have or any issues that come up, we just look to that as our guiding principles and then use that to help us maintain our culture and how we operate remotely.
Yeah, so if your people are not coming to the office to be able to interact with each other, I was talking to somebody this week, and they were talking about our ability to have coping mechanisms. We come to work, we have stress, we have different things that are going on. We have just the things we do to be able to cope with our jobs in the office. Well, what struck me is we have people working from home now, and they don't have those same office coping mechanisms, which is getting up, going, interacting with somebody, kind of walking around or whatever. And they're working in more of an independent environment. Is there something that you're doing with your people to really help them feel connected at this point in time, even though they're all dispersed?
You want me to answer that?
No.
Okay, so first of all, you can do Skype or Zoom by phone, and you can have walking meetings. And so, if people want to get out and walk and discuss something at the same time, that's kind of fun to do. A lot of it has to do with just the personal. I mean, there's remote, and then there's COVID remote. One we have anyway. COVID is something that we lay on. COVID, we're more informal, and we're more flexible. And so like right now, we can see each other's homes, except for Curt, who apparently is sailing. So and so it makes us more human. It gives us an opportunity to bond with each other. Obviously, we have to be appropriate. What we wear, what's in our background, that we've all seen the funny videos of the spouses coming in their underwear. I mean, we've all seen that. So you got to make sure that, you tell everybody. But I think the key is right now to take advantage of that And even in the meetings we have now, we do take advantage of it and making it more personal. And we have all company, obviously we have the business meetings, scheduled, standard, same. We have all company happy hours. And what happy hour means to you, doesn't matter. You can have Kool-Aid, doesn't matter. 5 o'clock, families invited. And we have games. And one of the games we had was choosing which was the best meme. So everybody sent in their best meme, best video, and then we had a contest on that. And tonight we're doing bingo. And there's a lot of trash talking in my company right now about who's going to win bingo. But, you know, it's just stuff like that to help us feel more connected.
I love that. And Chad, I mean, you lead leaders. So you have a group of people who are leading others. I'm kind of curious from your perspective, whatever, what guidance are you giving them to make sure that they are connecting and are helping, not only they are connecting, but that their teams feel a sense of connection? What have y'all put in place?
Well, you just said the word teams, not just because of my background in coaching, but I'm just wired to be a team guy, and most of the culture that we have here has a team attitude. So we've never felt like we've managed people. Coaching and mentoring is much more a term around here than managing. And we have a very light culture. I'm grateful for that. You joked earlier before we got on with the whole group that, you know, pick your flavor. This could be CNN or Fox. I'll be honest, our group is more Saturday Night Live, not CNN or Fox. So we have the happy hours like Annette's talking about. Usually there's a theme to our big Zoom meetings. Last week it was wear a hat, and the hats really turned into helmets. We had people with military police helmets and welders masks and things like that on the call. So keeping things light is pretty essential. And the team aspect that we talked about is just controlling panic right now, because if you dive into the news feeds, like we're all trying to get ourselves not to, and if you wonder what could be the worst case scenario, it can consume you. So just talk about making sure people get out of panic modes before they get into them. I told the entire group a day ago that in the contingent search world, we should be more prepared for COVID than anyone, because COVID's our newest bad candidate or bad client. You can do everything right, and the last second the candidate takes a counteroffer. That's what's happening today. We can do everything right, and COVID takes something away from us. So we should be more emotionally and mentally prepared than anyone. And so we're trying to continue that lighthearted approach and come out on the other side of this probably better with our clients, because we are not selling to them right now. We're partnering with them, that's when you gain the true credibility, when you're still calling on them without asking for a sale. You're there to help them come up better on the other side of this right now too. So that's really the only management, coaching, mentoring that we're doing, other than try to do business as usual. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I've been talking to leaders for the last 2 weeks in preparation for today, just asking people, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's the most important thing to address? And across the board, the one thing that has been most consistent is the term over-communicate. And in today's time, we need to be over-communicating. You know, Curt, with your sales team that you have out in the field, what does that mean to you, over-communicate?
Well, what it means to us internally is that we continue to have our one-on-one meetings, have our group meetings, touch base, and anything that comes from our vendors that is relevant, we then send to our sales reps. We try to coach them to not just forward it to the customer, but to have a meaning and a purpose. The over-communication from our sales reps to our customers is moving from all things COVID to being human. Really having a concern about family, or finding out what the local marketplace is doing as it impacts layoffs and furloughs, and trying to be mindful of that one as it relates to our customers. And you know, we have such a diverse base, from food and beverage, which is thriving right now, manufacturing thriving right now, oil and gas in peril. And so we need to be very mindful of that. And so our over communication tends to be that way. For me, I manage 3 people and I can't see them. I can't go to the office there in which is about a 2-hour drive from me. So I touch base with them through text messaging, through phone calls, at least 3 times a day. And usually it's not, so what have you done for me lately? Where are your numbers? What are you doing? It's more of a creative, what's challenging you today? What are you doing to keep yourself in an emotional state? And then we change that conversation, and it allows them to shift into, oh, he is caring about me. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And then we start talking about the day-to-day business.
What I'm hearing you say is, from a communication standpoint, we think about what the first time I heard over communicate was make sure we get the message going out this way. And the more people I spoke to about that, it falls in line with, and that is your management style, which is over communicate by putting yourself in a position where you're listening more. You're finding out more about their situation. What have you had to kind of either do more of, or maybe do differently now, as far as being able to really understand what your people are dealing with?
Really, as you said, the important thing is to ask for ideas and to listen and to try things. And some things seem silly. Hey, let's try this kind of meeting, or hey, let's try this software, or hey, whatever. Or it could be hours of the day. It doesn't matter. If they believe that they can be successful or more comfortable or more productive trying something different, if they offer it, give it a go. You know, and so I think that's critical. And so that's what I've seen.
Yeah, it's. I think that right now, as much as as leaders, we were supposed to have listened to our people before, the pressure that's being put on us, we have to raise that bar to a higher level. We have to actually listen even more. And what's interesting, when I was talking with Curt about this earlier, Chad, and you and I've had similar conversations. We have people on our teams that are introverts and extroverts. An extrovert, you go and you ask them, so how you doing? What are you dealing with? And they're going, blah, 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 blah. And then you have the introvert, which is somebody who holds things a little bit closer to the vest, and they have a tendency to go, well, I'm okay. You know, how do you know, what have you done to kind of make sure you're probing and pushing and getting people to call it be real, or to where you can really say, this is what this person is dealing with right now, so you can kind of help them chart? Because you were telling me your team is a fairly senior team. I mean, your people are only like 2 people. I mean, it's like 2 years or more experience. So you don't have a bunch of rookies running around, and they manage themselves fairly well. But at this point in time, they still need a leader to kind of help them deal with the emotional stuff that we got to push our way through.
Yeah, I guess I would call it the meeting after the meeting. Meaning some of the meetings are, okay, this is what the reality is. This is how we're going to move forward. This is what our new strategies are. And everyone nods their head. And maybe a month ago, you assumed that if they had questions, they would have asked. But even today, some of the extroverts are being introverts. So you kind of have to have the meeting after the meeting, one-on-one with a few that you're worried about. Do they have a question or concern they're not comfortable voicing right now? We did have a reduction of staff. We're hoping that's temporary. We can bring some of those or all of them back at some point. But I think that creates some pause and hesitancy in people to say everything's fine, because they're worried that if they say it's not, they might be the next reduction in workforce if there has to be another one. And that's not a fun way to operate for anyone. So the reality is it could happen to all of us if this goes south, but you can't work your life like that. And that's a manic way to try to live. So we have a lot of touch points to make sure that they know it's still safe to say what their struggles are, so that we can help them through struggles. And it's honestly, it's okay to say, I'm having a terrible day today. Tell me to have a better one. Because there's things that are going on in the home right now that affect the workplace more than ever. So you just have to ask about all of it. You know, Curt said, care about everything. That's the honest truth. You know, we've had 2 people deal with close family members passing that can't attend a funeral because of the restrictions put out there. So those are real things they're dealing with, and then they're told to work from home with a smile on. Yeah. And that's not expected of them, so you have to tell them it's okay.
So how do we shift, Annette? How do we shift expectations as leaders, where we have our employees, you know, like, let's go back, pick a date, 8 weeks, 9 weeks ago, whatever before this push to get our people working from home. And we had certain expectations of performance levels. And then now we have today's expectation of performance levels. And as a business, a for-profit business, we have to hit a goals and objectives and generate revenue. How have you managed the performance expectation level in dealing with your people dealing with their circumstances or situations today?
A few things. First of all, we have to work off the data we have so that we're not just making emotional decisions or giving expectations based on emotion. And then we have to keep it real, come up with a plan after we understand the reality. So for us to say we want to continue at a 20% growth over the next quarter, when in reality 70% of our business is either companies that are non-essential or if they're oil and gas, that's not realistic. And that is going to be what scares away our people. They're going to go, I can't do this. I know I'm going to get fired, And so I think what's important is to understand exactly where you are today and realize that that's not the fault of our people for lack of production, lack of activity. Then you got to reboot and you got to go, okay, we're at this level now. Let's keep it real. And let's look where the business is, because there is business out there. So we may have to diversify, as we all know. So give them realistic expectations in terms of growth now from this place. And you know what? It may get worse before it gets better. So the key is going to be to give those realistic expectations, but they must be expectations for growth or for recovering the business that has been lost. So we can't go super easy, but if they know that you're in it and you understand where they're coming from, the likelihood is they'll be more motivated to be productive, to diversify and to recover that business.
Yeah. So, because we should, I'll throw this out to all three of you, because when you're saying that, it's like we can't allow COVID to be used as an excuse, right? But at the same time, we have to look at the realness of the environments are changing. How do you blend those two things together, Curt?
I don't have an easy answer for you on that one, because.
Annette's waiting for you to finish. I know she's going to dive in, but go ahead.
Do what?
So Annette's waiting for you to finish. She's going to dive in, so go ahead.
Oh, well, go ahead, dive in. Good, dive in. And I'm gonna pass you the baton.
It's more like knock yourself out.
I misread her. So
go ahead, Curt. Feel free.
Well, repeat the question one more time for our listener audience.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry if you didn't write it down. I have a hard time doing it twice in a row the same way. But it's you have COVID, okay, which is causing pressure, right? But at the same time, we have business reasons to be moving forward. How do we marry and how do we manage this where we are right now, and recognizing we have to push forward, but at the same time, there's a reality that our people are dealing with things that are real situations. I have a client that I'm working with that I do coaching with up in the Midwest, and his reality is he's moved to a home office. His wife is a school teacher, so she's now having to teach from home. He's got 2 small children and trying to figure out how to do this stuff. And the challenge that he's wrestling with is that his wife teaches visually impaired students, and she has to do it over the internet now. And so, I mean, you can imagine that that's a reality he has to deal with. So how do you coach? How do you get people to not to have performance levels, or the levels that we want, and not use it as COVID as an excuse to lower performance?
Sure.
It's time to push through it.
It's a great question, Mike, because I've been getting it from all of the sales managers at DXP asking me, do I have the silver bullet? Do I have the magic email? Do I have all of that? And I've been thinking about it from going back to the basics, just saying to people in a sales modality, it's kind of where I live, let's clean up our database. Let's add more contacts that we have that we don't have the physical mailing address. Do an organizational chart and find out 2 levels up, 2 levels across, and 2 levels deep. Let's do business building activities and prepare for the next wave, which is we're going back into reality where COVID's being lifted and we've got people who are essential and non-essential going back to work. From an operations standpoint, they struggle in a little different modality because they've got reports, they have structure, they have the things that they're doing each day. And for that, it's break up your day into small projects and make those small accomplishments. And again, that's easier said than done when you're working remotely with an asterisk, remotely sharing a kitchen table with your 10-year-old and your spouse, and you're scratching your head thinking, how can we do that? I think we as managers can just create these projects with smaller goals and smaller deadlines, with the accomplishments that we can celebrate, because it's the difference between working remote and working remote with COVID.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing you say here also is you convert tasks into projects. Marketing campaigns into looking at projects and putting small sections, so that, because there's not a question of are we going to go back to some sense of what we used to have. The answer is yes. We all know that, and so it's to look at where we are right now and look at the future and say it's always going to be this way. It's not realistic, right? But at the same time,
in there.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Some of it is, the biggest thing first is the mindset. And some people are more scrappy. Some people have more drive than others. That's just a fact. So sometimes big picture, if we can, share with them perhaps an example that we need to apply in our business. The example could be simple. You have no food at home. So you go to HEB, there is no food there. Do you just go, oh man, there's no food, and go home, can't feed my kids? I mean, you just aren't going to do that. You're going to go from store to store to store to store. You're going to go at 2 a.m. if you have to. You're going to go it doesn't matter. You're going to get scrappy and make it happen because your kids need to eat. This is where we are. So you may have to do it 2 a.m. You may 7 a.m. You may have to prospect differently. Think out of the box. Think like you would have to if you had to survive and go to the store and get food. It's the same mindset.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. So, Chad, I'd like for you and Annette both. I'll let you go first with this. From a recruiting standpoint, search firms, the challenge we have is we can go. Some of the advice is give. Let's build pipelines. We need a pipeline so when these jobs come back online, we're going to be. We'll be queued up for it. At the same time, there's pressure of we need to perform now, on the other side of it. So, Annette and Chad, what are your thoughts about that? How do you coach somebody to be able to take a long-term approach, recognizing that we also still need to get some short-term results in the midst of this? It's kind of what, the scrappiness that Annette's talking about. What are your thoughts, Chad?
Well, I'd like to say there's some magical way to manage that, but when you're in a commission-based business, some of the commissions take care of that motivation for yourself. Recruiters want to work where they can make money. So if maybe the vertical they were recruiting in has gone dry, you don't often have to ask them to switch verticals. They're asking to. So there's already a willingness for them to be productive to make money today. What I've been happy to hear is there's a lot of them that have been excited to try new things as well. So there's been geographic markets we've dabbled in, and COVID's given us the impetus to dive into some of those markets instead of dabble in them right now, because now is the time to lay that groundwork. And you've heard me say it earlier, and it's a phrase we're using a lot, come out stronger on the other side of this. And there's a definite motivation to do that, whether it be a new geographic market or picking up another skill set they recruit for. So the fact they want to make money, I don't have to worry about that. They worry about that on their own. And I've been very blessed to have a group of people that are willing to try something new to come out better on the other side, whether it be their own personal skill sets or new markets for the company.
Super. What about you, Annette?
So we have a traditional model where we have sales reps and then we have internal recruiters, and it's mostly temp. It's blended, but mostly temp. And so for my recruiters, I would say split up your time to different things. First, if you want a short-term win, part of your time is going to be on short-term gains, skill marketing, that kind of thing, to companies that are essential and that are open. Then the next one is going to be the long-term, which is, so part of your day is going to be based on long-term, the database build, like you mentioned, Mike. And then other things they can do that they should take advantage of now that'll help us long-term are training. My corporate team is all about training. Every day there's some sort of, snippet, and we do it at 7 a.m. It's not during pay time. And then also they can participate in lead generation. And we have a whole training around where they can get leads, and certainly they can be acknowledged for the leads that they get. So that's how we handle it in our group.
Super. I'm going to go over here and I've opened up a Q&A window. I'm going to throw this in here just to skim this real quick. One of the questions came in, this was for you, Annette, is how do you play bingo on Zoom?
Oh, this is great. Okay. Now this is DIY, just saying. So what I did is I created an Excel spreadsheet, okay? And I sent it to everybody. And then on this spreadsheet, I made B 1 through 99, I 1 through 99, and now I have them broken up here. So their job, I gave them the rules, their job is to print as many of those as they want, and they have to fill in 1 through 99 in any order, in any box. All the boxes have to be complete. So they have their own cards. That's how, and then everything we do now is Amazon gift cards, because you know, Amazon has toilet paper. Anyway, so that's what we do.
Yes, it's kind of amazing. If I go back 10 or 15 years when I was trying to look at like this discussions with key executives like you and that, I never pictured we would talk about toilet paper. That's just the way it goes. So
levity, man, it's levity. We need to have a lot of it.
Wild times, and so question, Curt, I got a question for you. It has to do with something you'd mentioned, especially because you and I have done a lot of work with assessments, helping people understand how they're naturally wired, and how they can the more that they understand how they're naturally wired, they can use that to be able to interact with their contemporaries, their bosses, their clients, and how they can adjust their approach to be able to accomplish what they want. You mentioned something that there's a challenge that our people have working at home, especially those that are introverted, where they wrestle with FOMO.
Right. They wrestle with the fear of missing out, and both extroverts and introverts. And we're all, the hardest thing is when you're working in a group environment, you can walk to someone else's cubicle, ask a question, you can bump into them getting coffee, you can go up one floor, down one floor and talk to somebody. And you'll be in the know, you're looped into the information. Here we're in a vacuum a little bit, especially for the ones who've never had to work from home, and now they are. And so there is a bit of a challenge on that fear of missing out. So knowing a little bit about your basic behavioral styles using the DISC method, whether it's DISC, going back and reviewing the strengths and challenges amongst the 4 personality styles or behavioral styles, and to understand that, you know, those high D, those driver types, they want to conquer a problem, they want to solve a problem, and I fall into that category. And last week I was drifting. I wasn't doing the things that I thought I should do, and then all of a sudden my boss gave me a project, and it was like, you know, I had so much energy, so much focus on that project to do. The high I's we're all extroverted. We've got to probably add video to our dimension so that we can see other people and relax and connect. And those I's, I mean, the S's, the steady, quiet, maybe introverted types. I think what Chad said is to just care about them from all of the things. I mean, the fact that I don't even know how to process the fact that I can't go celebrate someone's life if they passed away. I don't even know. Those emotions haven't even come into my life yet, but when they do, I won't know how to process those. And then those, the high C's or the analytical types, under stress, the analytical types tend to be very picky and maybe under more stress and maybe just a little bit cynical and a little bit more exacting. And so I can see that manifest when I'm talking to somebody who is an high analytic. They tend to start, you know, well, I didn't like this, or that was harder to get to, or that certainly wasn't intuitive. And they emote a bit more. And so if I know that, I can connect a little bit more with those people and try to get them into a place where at least they get to a neutral place where they're not manifesting their bad behaviors.
Yeah, because it's I'm an authorized partner with the Jill Hickman companies and do a lot of work in this space because one of the things that early on that Jill was pointing out is that from a business standpoint, if you think in terms of a T-bar, there's the business side and there's the human side. I mean, and if as companies, if we manage too much on the human side, we got to make a profit. There's always a business application. But the challenge we have is if we stay on the business side for too much, what happens is we don't get engagement. And in today's time, the challenge we're running into, we have people where we have to give ourselves not permission, but responsibility to engage with our people more at their emotional level, whatever it is that they're dealing with. Because this environment that we're in right now has caused there's emotional a challenge we have for the fact that normal for us is interacting with people is simply getting out of our house and walking up and down the street and seeing somebody from 8 feet away. That's the human interaction that we have, and that's it. And so it's being able to recognize with what you're saying, Curt. How do you pop that bubble? How do you connect with people? But also I think that the more we can create normalcy. Chad, do you have your people like a schedule where you start your day off with a meeting together, or do y'all have any kind of process like that in place where the people sort of have a lunchtime where they all come together before they fire?
We don't have, not daily, but we have a couple touch points a week where there's team touch calls, and then we just call them our discipline or niche calls. So like everyone who might recruit for engineering gets on a call together, even if they're on different business teams. So we have a couple of those set up a week. And then there's a couple individual touch points with the direct manager, team lead of the person as well. So we have scheduled blocks of time. They probably have, depending on the person, 3 or 4 of those a week, but not a daily time. Yeah. But they're beneficial to kind of reset the table every time. Mm-hmm. A month ago, they were done to define success. I feel like right now they're to define success and activity, because it's hard to measure success right now. So it's easier to define activity than it is measure success. So for us, it's control your controllables. It's always been that, but now more than ever. So getting someone to accept a job offer and get through the interview process is more out of control than ever, but it's still within our control to talk to as many people every day and connect with those people every day as we can. So the individual contact metrics should be as high as ever, even if the success metrics at the end are a little undefined right now.
Yeah, because what's happened is that if we're just doing the same that we used to do before this started, it's not enough. We have to be operating in a more of something to be able to push forward. And our business has always been very activity-based, measure activity. But in today's time, there's never been a time that's been more important to be looking at what activity am I generating. And activity has to do with how often am I connecting with somebody. Because the more
I'll tell you, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
Probably the biggest surprise to me through this process as we talk through those meetings with my team, that I know one of the prep questions you had for us was a do-over. I don't know if I'd call this a do-over, but we have been surprised by the number of candidates not wanting to at least explore the marketplace while they're at home. Some of them laid off, some of them more flexibility to talk because they're not sitting next to their boss. To me, that's a definition of the fear that's in the world right now, that there's such a real fear to them that they don't even want to brush up their resume or engage in a conversation that's a non-committal conversation about what their career is. So that was an unanticipated outcome of this. We had that one 100% wrong. We thought, cool, everyone's sitting home, they have time to brush up their resumes, they're not sitting next to their boss, they can't wait to talk to us. They'll talk to us. That was accurate, but they don't want their resume sent anywhere. They don't want to engage in conversations. Some out of loyalty to their employer, some out of fear of the unknown. That was something we weren't prepared for and are trying to adjust to on the fly right now.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I'm doing a webinar at the end of this month that focuses on the subject of, we have to raise as an industry our, from a recruiting standpoint, our ability to be perceived as an with empathetic listening techniques. We've always preached that, but how do we go to a deeper level? Because if we don't increase the trust factor with those individuals to be able to mitigate that real world situation. Because we're getting close to close time. I've seen some questions popping up here. Curt, one of the questions that you were talking about, the C people, on DISC, which is the high analytics. They have a tendency to go through and really look at detail and drive, and they create great value. But at the same time, they can have a tendency to be a little bit picky, picking things. And so the question that's been brought up is, how do you help them get off of that picky mindset so you can get action moving forward?
Well, I'll steal this one from Brene Brown, since she's so much smarter than I am, here from Houston, Texas. She just started a podcast about a month ago, and she starts talking about FFTs. Well, for the children in the audience, we'll call them freaking first times. And the idea is that, look, this is all new and this is all the first time for us. So the pickiness to be expected of somebody who's a high C under stress, give yourself permission to say, you know what, you don't have to figure it all out, because it'll change. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were going to have 500,000 dead bodies. And now it's been changed. I mean, I can't live in the past, and I can't predict the future. So for my high Cs who are picky right now, and I experience a lot of them, give yourself permission. This is an FFT. This is a first time, and we're making this up as we go. We got to have more grace than we do anything else. And I have almost no C in my profile, so you don't want me, when I'm in a bad space, you don't want me at the HEB, because I do not want to follow somebody's rule about when I can put my groceries on the cart, when I can move 6 feet based on permission, but not another foot because I'm too close to the bagger. I just can't go there. I want to break all the rules just because I need the attention as an extrovert. So I'm a mess. I just got to make sure I'm not that picky.
Yeah. The thing I'll throw in there also on top of that is that when you're dealing with somebody who's at high analytic, you have to recognize data is important to them. And so what happens if you want them to move, you have to look at what data do they not have and figure out how do you get it to them, and then move from data to result and recognize that what they're after, pickiness, they have a tendency to be after accuracy as opposed to territory. And their fear is not knowing the process, not being able to deliver, not being able to perform. And that helps move in that direction. And then Annette, somebody asked you, said you talked about breakdown for recruiters to focus on, and you have recruiters and you have sales reps in some offices where you have the operations people and the sales team. Is there a breakdown that you have that you do for the sales rep from an expectation standpoint?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because now the expectation for in-person visits has changed. So there are a few activities that they can do now in place of that. And the biggest activity is going to be a phone activity, not email. Email is more marketing. People tend to go that direction because it's easier and quicker, and quite frankly, they don't have to address rejection. But the fact is, there are people out there answering phones. Not everybody, but there are plenty. So what I'm pushing for now is skill marketing call, or it could be cold calls to rebuild your database, because right now it needs to change. Us are actually safely and putting our mask on, driving in the car and looking at companies that still have cars. I mean, literally. Does that have cars in front of it? A lot of them, they're operating. Write it down. Go home, make some phone calls. Literally, that's what they're doing.
Market research. I love that. Then. So we only have
Field research.
That's awesome. We're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna ask you, as Chad mentioned, that I threw a question out. Was it if you're gonna do something over? Is there something you've learned that wish you had done differently from a do-over standpoint? While you're thinking about that, there is a question that came up that's kind of a yes or no type of question that pops up. This week is Holy Week, and some companies that will have tomorrow's Good Friday. And so the question is, are you going to ask people to stay home for Good Friday? I added to the question, but I mean, I started thinking about it. We used to give people, you don't have to come to work, you can stay home on Good Friday. Annette, are you changing expectations, or how are y'all dealing with that?
We're off.
You're off. Chad, what do y'all do with as far as Good Friday? Anything?
It's a work day for us, and the decision to change that's above my head.
Okay, that's just checking on it. So we used to give Good Friday off, and it's kind of funny. So I'd say, okay, y'all stay home tomorrow. It's all right. We're in good shape then. So, Curt, do over. What have you
that we need to be a little bit more proactive on getting the tools out when we have these new normals. Be a little bit more proactive. We were great with thinking about it, but we weren't that great with communicating it. So maybe more over communication in the front end. And then as this thing continues, just a little bit more communication.
Yeah, and it's not too late right now. I mean, there's tools and stuff out there. I learned of a new one this past week. I lined up an interview for me to have a conversation with the CEO of one of the top recruiting firms in the Southeast. And he and I know each other. We connected up, and I said, "You want to learn a Zoom call?" He says, "Is blue jeans okay?" And I'm sitting there going, "Well, I don't care what you wear. I'll wear flip flops. I'm not really sure." And then, but so I researched and I found blue jeans is Zoom's competitor. And so it's supposed to be, it's pretty simple. So if Zoom is causing a problem, you can check with that. There's a free version of Zoom. There's not a free version of Blue Jeans, but it's highly regarded new technology. Kurt, thank you. Annette, what the do-over? Anything you
Divide
want?
and conquer on the educational webinars.
Yeah, I like that. You're talking about as far as divide and conquer, spread things out.
Yeah, you be in charge of the ones associated with this topic. You be in charge of this. Then we come together versus all of us getting on one, all of us getting on another.
Boy, I like that idea. It causes that interaction, people to share knowledge on that. That's a smart idea. I like that. What about you, Chad?
I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. I wish I had not made a very wrong assumption that candidates are going to be excited to take advantage of this time. We would have, right from the start, taken a different position in coaching conversations.
Yeah, super. Well, as we wrap up, I'm instead of quoting Mike, I will tell you this, anybody who's on the webinar today on our virtual event, the Joe Hookman company is allowing me, there's a thing that we can offer that's an assessment. It's a free one for one person per company, but it's called Time Mastery. It gives you the ability to kind of look at what Kurt's talking about, how you're wired to deal with time management. And it's a pretty cool assessment. And we're just as a thank you for joining us. I'm going to give one per company, line up a debriefing session for me to spend some time with you on that. So we'll send an email out to everybody who's on here. I'm going to end up like our time together with Chuck Swindoll. All three of our panelists today, by the way, thank you very much for sharing your time and just your experiences. And you brought great value, I believe. To the people who chose to listen in. I'm actually going to, I've recorded this. We're going to put this on YouTube and have this out for us to be able to share it out because there's some really good stuff that came out from this. Chuck Swindoll pointed this out. It says, the future is a challenge. It's not a tragic problem. And what happens is sometimes we look down the road and we see travesty and Armageddon and stuff. And the future is a challenge. We're going to get through this time. We will all gain from it in some form or fashion. We'll learn from it. We'll be shaped by it. And I will tell you, in our industry, we will be remembered by our clients, the candidates, the people that we serve, and the people we report to by the way we handle this period of time. And so continue to be a voice of hope, because that's what the recruiting industry is built on. We are hope merchants. We provide hope to companies that they can perform better by finding the talent we bring to them. We provide hope to people who are in transition from one space to another where their dreams can be realized, that paychecks can be gained. We are hope merchants. Go spread the message. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.